Hello there. Thank you so much for joining us. This is News Channel Nebraska. My name's Eric McKay. Let's take a look at our top headlines today. Beginning in northeast Nebraska, where law enforcement say two men are lucky to be alive following a crash. These images show the aftermath of the one-vehicle accident that happened Sunday on State Highway 57 south of Stanton. Stanton County Sheriff's officials tell us 27-year-old Alejandro Reyes of Stanton was driving northbound when he crossed the center line and smashed head-on into the guardrail of a bridge. A passenger in the vehicle had to be extricated and was taken to a Norfolk hospital. Reyes also hospitalized. Authorities say Reyes was eventually arrested for driving while intoxicated. The crash shut down the highway for about 2 hours. State highway officials worked into the night to make repairs to the guardrail. First responders, meanwhile, spent Sunday responding to two rollover crashes in the same southeast Nebraska county. The York County Sheriff's Office says deputies were sent to I-80 between Bradshaw and Henderson for a semi that ended up on its side. Authorities say the driver lost control and rolled the truck, which blocked both westbound lanes of the interstate. York County officials were sent to a second semi-rollover soon after the first, this one along a dirt road in rural York County. Sheriff's officials said both drivers suffered what were called minor injuries. Neither were hospitalized. International news, a transition underway in Syria after rebel forces took down that country's dictatorship. It's a moment of celebration and hope for many Syrians, but the future of the country remains unclear. And as Amy Kiley reports, the U.S. and several allies have a stake in what happens next.
What happens now in the aftermath of the Assad regime?
U.S. interests in the Middle East hang in the balance after the fall of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's brutal dictatorship. Rebel forces say they control the capital city of Damascus. An official source in Russia says Assad has taken refuge in Moscow.
He'll be remembered as one of the most violent rulers in response to the uprisings that started in late 2010 in the Arab world.
Analysts say the overthrow of Assad helps the U.S.
This is good for the Syrian people. It is good for the region. It is bad for Russia and Iran, thus good for the rest of the world.
The U.S. is taking steps to prevent a resurgence of ISIS during the transition. U.S. Central Command says the American military has struck more than 75 ISIS targets in Syria. Officials also are watching rebel leader Abu Mohammed al-Jawlani.
Jawlani and his movement, HTS, fought the Islamic State, and while he is officially still on the terrorist list, we haven't seen any what we would consider terrorist activities out of that movement for a good deal of time.
President-elect Donald Trump is urging the U.S. not to get involved with what's happening in Syria. President Joe Biden is pledging support for regional allies.
It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria. It's also a moment of risk and uncertainty.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
A polygamous religious leader with ties to Nebraska faces decades in prison in Arizona after claiming more than 20 spiritual wives, including 10 underage girls. Samuel Bateman has pleaded guilty to coercing girls as young as 9 years old to submit to criminal sex acts with him and other adults. Bateman declared himself a prophet of a small offshoot of the sect once led by Warren Jeffs, who led the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Bateman admitted he schemed for years to transport girls across state lines, including some from Nebraska, for his sex crimes. He also admitted to kidnapping some from protective custody. The crimes could put him in prison for life. If your holiday shopping list is far from complete, consumer advocates in Nebraska say they hope you don't ignore the warning signs of scams in the rush to buy gifts. It's a digital world, and there are always new things to pay attention to. Over the past few years, shoppers have been warned about avoiding gift card scams or not falling prey to phony texts about shipment delays. AARP Nebraska says the emergence of cryptocurrency in the online trading world presents another challenge, including during the holiday shopping crunch.
Scammers and fraudsters are using the same types of scams that they've used in the past, but they're now soliciting people to pay them through the cryptocurrency ATMs using things such as Bitcoins and that.
Experts say if you get a call from someone initiating a scam about a purchase you never made, asking for a callback number will quickly get their attention.
Typically, you will find if you do ask for a callback number, they're going to hang up on you immediately because they've not gotten what they needed and they wanted and they know you're onto them.
AARP says if you're directed to send someone money by converting cash to cryptocurrency at a convenience store kiosk, that's a scam. As for other tips, experts note scammers can tamper with gift cards on store racks and steal the funds when the card's activated. They say it's best to ask for a gift card sold behind the counter. They also advise regularly updating software on your electronic devices for additional fraud protection. A prominent Nebraska entrepreneur and former UNL regent has passed away. Howard Hawks died over the weekend. He co-founded Tenaska. It's one of the largest independently owned energy companies in the U.S. He was also a regent from 2003 to 2021 and is the namesake of Hawks Hall on UNL's campus. Tributes to Hawks poured in over the weekend. The University of Nebraska said on social media Hawks was instrumental in shaping the landscape of the University of Nebraska in both athletics and academics. Prominent leaders around the state weighed in as well. Governor Jim Pillen called Hawks an extraordinary business leader and servant of the university system. U.S. Senator Deb Fischer said Hawks' leadership will shape Nebraska for decades to come. U.S. Congressman Mike Flood said Hawks believed in the university and invested in the unlimited potential of our citizens. Hawks was 89 years old. Well, there was no snow, but great weather for an annual Christmas time event in southeast Nebraska over the weekend. Doug Kennedy has more.
Weather more typical of October with temperatures in the mid-50s greeted the crowd at the 10th annual Holiday Lighted Parade in downtown Beatrice Saturday night.
We put in our chamber order and it came through. Yeah, it's fantastic. I know there was a line for the reindeer like a half an hour before the event even opened for that, and it's been a lot of fun seeing everybody come in and line the parade route, so it's all coming together.
The Beatrice Area Chamber of Commerce holiday event features live reindeer, hot chocolate, and other goodies and lighted floats put together by local businesses, organizations, schools, and city government departments. Beatrice Area Chamber Executive Angie Bruna said about 25 entries took part in the annual lighted parade, including some first-time entries. Over the 10 years, she says it's been a lot of fun.
Before 10 years ago with the first one, we were just a few of us sitting around chatting about why couldn't Beatrice be like a Christmas town and what do we need to do to make that happen, and that's kind of how the start of the holiday parade came to be. And now we've grown and we have more entries than we've had, and we have lights all over Charles Park, and we have ideas for more, so want to see this continue to expand.
Lights were added to more trees at Charles Park next to the Chamber headquarters building. Main Street Beatrice received a grant this year to add new snowflake holiday lights to the downtown. The holiday lighted parade expanded to include business specials, crafts, and an art show, activities at the library, and Beatrice Fire and Rescue offering fire truck rides throughout the afternoon. Parade awards are handed out for Best Use of Theme, Best Use of Lights, and Best Holiday Spirit. This year's theme was A Candy Christmas. Santa Claus, hopping a ride in a convertible, made a visit to the parade to meet with kids afterward at Charles Park. From Beatrice, Doug Kennedy, News Channel, Nebraska.
Another holiday lighting celebration was almost left in the dark because of high winds. The annual Christmas celebration in Windside almost didn't happen. That's because high winds caused rolling blackouts throughout town. Thankfully, organizers say the power was restored just in time for the event in the town of about 400 people near Wayne. The celebration featured live entertainment, hay rack rides, hot chocolate, a visit from Santa, and the reveal of the village's holiday lighting display, all organized by volunteers. And this is the time of year where we reflect on the year's end. Dictionaries are no exception. They annually release what words they think best represented the previous 12 months. Officials at Merriam-Webster explain why their word of the year for 2024 is polarization.
The online dictionary tells us which words are being looked up, but also in what volume. And so we try to have a data-driven list that explains what words sent people to the dictionary in the past year. And so the word of the year for 2024 from Merriam-Webster is polarization. And obviously this year was a year with an important election. The elections were clearly the story of the year. And polarization is the term that has been used by everyone.
Can be tied back to the polarization.
Because people are very polarized.
The world today is very polarized.
I will also say that polarization, it means division, but it's a very specific kind of division. I mean, the word division just means split, so that could be divided very closely. There are other words like tribalism, which means that people have sort of pre-existing ideas and ideals. But polarization really means separated. It means the extremes, which we identify as poles, which originally, of course, was a geographic reference or a mathematical reference. I think that idea of the dictionary as being a kind of backstop for meaning in an era of fake news, alternative facts, whatever you want to say about the value of a word's meaning in the culture, at least the dictionary can measure that meaning in a very specific way for everyone. This is a word that came in the 1800s, much, much later, because when they were starting to talk about polarization, you were talking about both visual science, so and that's why we say polarized sunglasses, for example, and also, of course, electricity itself. That the way that we use electricity, it depends upon two different poles, and so it came in as a scientific term, and it came in the early 1800s. And I find that interesting, just because in 1,000 years of English, that's a pretty young word, actually.
And you can stay up to date with the very latest by following us online. Head to newschannelnebraska.com, click on the News tab there. You can also follow us on X, like us on Facebook and Instagram as well. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. This is News Channel Nebraska.